We want the governments to take accountability, the churches to take accountability, the police services to take accountability.
A Saskatchewan residential school releases the results of their ground search.
We've been living in an adaptable world that our people have been forced upon since colonialism.
Squamish First Nation takes steps to control their own education system.
Kind of like entering my NT stage in the community.
A big win for a burlesque dancer from Mohawk territory. Good evening, I'm Priscilla Wolfe. In Saskatchewan today, the Star Blanket Cree Nation made a major announcement. They've released initial findings of a ground-penetrating radar search on the Fort Capel Indian Residential School site. The search identified more than 2,000 anomalies within the former grounds of one of Canada's first residential schools. While not all the anomalies are certain to be human remains, the jawbone of a young child around the age of 5 was discovered. The jawbone is dated to be approximately 125 years old, which is soon after the Catholic-run residential school became operational in 1884. Star Blanket Cree Nation's Chief Michael Starr says more accountability needs to be taken from those who created this atrocity.
We want to honor this young child, the remains of this young child. We want the governments to take accountability, the churches to take accountability, the police services to take accountability. That's what we want from this.
A man who pleaded guilty to 12 sexual assaults spanning from 2013 to 2021 has changed his plea. 61-year-old Cecil Wolfe appeared in court this morning by telephone. Wolfe was first charged in 2021 by the Saskatoon Sex Crimes Unit and pled guilty in October 2022. The allegations set out by the Crown say that he used his status as a traditional healer to sexually assault 12 women. Today, his plea changed to not guilty, which means the case will go to trial. The matter has been adjourned for case management, scheduled for January 23rd. If a judge rules the application is warranted, another court hearing will be scheduled. A new report by the Human Rights Watch says Canada is failing to address systemic issues affecting Indigenous communities. The annual report outlines how the Trudeau government has not followed through with its commitments to end all drinking water advisories in First Nation communities by 2021. It states 28 First Nation communities across Canada remain subject to long-term water advisories. The report also states the federal government's National Action Plan in response to the National Inquiry into Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women, Girls, and Two-Spirit Plus people was a failure for several reasons, including its lack of a cost-effective implementation plan.
I'm glad we have this report now, because I think this is going to enable us to keep an eye on what's going on. We'll be able to measure some of the actions that the government is taking or not taking.
We want to hear what you think. Here's how to continue the conversation. Send your emails to news@aptn.ca. Leave a comment on aptnnews.ca. You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. Follow APTN News to join the conversation and see our latest stories. The Federation of Sovereign Indigenous Nations Vice Chief Heather Bair joins us to advocate for better programs for addictions. Her daughter, Novalee Cheyenne Fox, was seeking treatment, but they didn't have enough beds. She was released from the hospital and is now missing. Chief Bear, thank you so much for joining us. And I'm so sorry to hear about your daughter who is missing. Can you tell us about the circumstances of how she went missing?
Thank you. And well, as many know, these are painful situations. And my daughter went missing from the General Hospital after an OD situation that occurred. And well, sadly, the arrangements that I had there was a small window of time. I had left, and they were supposed to keep her there, and they didn't. So I feel like I was failed there. Novali is a very vulnerable individual, and very sick right now, and she needs her family. We need her home. We need her to get the support and help she needs. And at this point, I'm fighting for her life. And there's many people, about 30 people at this moment, searching. And I've reached out to friends and colleagues, people like Erica Bowden, one of a great trooper in terms of knowing and understanding the plight of our people. Addictions is real, mental health is real, and as First Nations and leaders ourselves, we are still in the margins of society.
Right, and because as a First Nations leader, you've been advocating for families of murdered and missing Indigenous women and girls for years. What are some of the problems that you have faced personally in the past few days?
Well, in the past few days, like I say, for the past 20 years, and I'm a survivor, when we talk about suicide and youth suicide, my daughter, I buried her 20 years ago on a Christmas Eve. Here I am 20 years later, trying to get the help for my daughter, and this ongoing trauma and victimization of our people, and that the help hasn't been there. The help that we need hasn't been there. The kind of help, trauma-enforced, trauma-centered approaches, accessibility, and like, it's sad that, once, the addictions take over, our people aren't making, our loved ones are not making decisions that are that are in the spirit of wellness for themselves. Like, these are really very wounded, sick people. Mental health is real. And like I say, as an advocate, and as a leader, and as a family that has access to resources, we still find ourselves in the margins of society. We still feel the pain of discrimination at the hospitals and being treated less than but I am grateful for, the Chief of Police, Evan Bray, has been helpful here. But the thing is that we have policies here that are making it easier for our people to get away, in terms of, when someone goes missing, like last night when we had a tip of an address, the police could only go and knock on the door. Why can't they make those sweeps?
And we do have a picture of her that we can provide for the audience. Now, thank you so much, and good luck with finding her. I'm so sorry that you have to go through this.
And I want to say, from our family, we're all working together, and I want to say that people on the streets, the homeless people, are helping. Random people are helping, and I, so much gratitude for everyone. And like I say, we all feel the pain, but we have our prayers too. So thank you to the elders out there who are helping as well.
We need to take a short break, but still to come, we will have a report on our North Vancouver First Nation who is taking education into their own hands.
As a people, I just really feel we're getting grounded again in regards to knowing who we are and where we come from.
Bearpaw Media and Education have been offering free online educational training aimed at Indigenous youth, and their latest training module is called Bearpaw U. The courses teach about topics from what to do during police interactions to court proceedings and how to obtain ID. APTN's Chris Stewart has more.
Since 1976, Bearpaw Media and Education have been producing award-winning films that help educate Indigenous youth about the world around them, learning about your rights, social, and justice issues. Their latest endeavor is Bearpaw U. Like their previous training seminars, it is free. You only need an email address. Bearpaw U consists of dozens of chapters of online courses, like interacting with police on the street, and what you should and should not do when talking to them, how you don't have to answer questions from police or give your name unless you are suspected of committing a crime. The courses are made to be fun and have quizzes at the end. Marlene Orr is the CEO of the Native Counseling Services of Alberta, who run Bearpaw Media and Education.
We've recognized that there's a need to alter the way that we present that information to reach different segments of the Indigenous community. And so Bearpaw U was really an idea that came about as a means to connect with young Indigenous people around different legal topics, around different areas of rights.
While training is specific to Alberta law and is focused on Indigenous youth, anyone can take Bearpaw U or any of their other online training courses. From missing and murdered Indigenous people, truth and reconciliation, navigating Alberta's children's services, and more. They are not afraid to tackle important issues.
And yeah, sometimes it's very difficult topics, but we do it with kindness, we do it with fact, and we do it in short, meaningful ways that people can grasp very complex topics.
You can sign up with your email at bearpawlegalresources.ca. Chris Stewart, APTN National News, Edmonton.
A First Nation in North Vancouver is taking jurisdiction over their education. As APTN's Tina House explains, it's a chance for the nation to reclaim how future generations are taught about who they are.
Here at the Capilano Littlest One School, culture is a big part of education and having some fun too.
Can bullying affect my life where I'm not sleeping properly?
In December, 88% of Squamish Nation members voted yes to an education jurisdiction agreement, clearing the way for the nation to take control over their education system and creating a new education law. Squamish Nation Councillor Wilson Williams says it's time for this next step.
It's the empowerment that we are revitalizing as a people. I just really feel we're getting grounded again in regards to knowing who we are and where we come from, because that allows us to pave that path forward for the future.
The agreement signed with Canada will allow the Squamish Nation to join 4 other First Nations in BC authority over their kindergarten to grade 12 systems, including overseeing teacher certification, graduation requirements, curriculum, and approving courses. The Squamish Nation released this video on their website.
And it would actually be nice if there was an actual Squamish teacher for us to learn our language and not just,
In the public school system, I think that the teachers didn't have enough knowledge on Indigenous history and Indigenous education. So I think that there was that was where it was uncomfortable for Indigenous students. What really was eye-opening to me was I had known about residential school my whole life, and I get to grade 9 and my peers who are non-Indigenous, this is their first time learning about residential school, and that's it's really heartbreaking in a way.
On ace, T-squile, T-seats.
And back at the Capilano Littlest One School, teaching their language and encouraging them to be proud of who they are is vital to their education. And another big part is getting out onto the land and teaching the traditions passed on for generations.
we've been living in an adaptable world that our people have been forced upon since colonialism. Now we're getting back to our ways. We call our nuchneoch, our ways of life, the way our upbringing. So, you know, that resonates not just with the Squamish Nation, but it resonates with Indigenous communities and peoples throughout Canada. And if leaders of this movement that gain this control back for our people, it's empowering.
Tina House, APTN National News, North Vancouver.
We need to take a short break, but still to come. She's been a staple of the Montreal burlesque scene for over a decade. We will have that story coming up.
I think burlesque is very empowering. It's always been a really awesome means of expression for myself and for other people.
Welcome back. Time now for a photo of the day. Savannah Durand shared this picture from Falcon Lake, Manitoba, of her dog, Callie, enjoying all the open space on the frozen lake. Great shot. So how are you enjoying the winter weather? Send us your pictures to be featured as our photo of the day, or email them to share@aptn.ca. Now let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. Time for the weather. We'll start on the east, where it is -4 in Charlottetown and -3 in Halifax. It is -7 in Happy Valley Goose Bay, -5 in Cartwright, -6 in Quebec City, and 0 in Montreal, -1 in North Bay, and -1 in Ottawa. It is -9 in Big Trout Lake and -2 in Thunder Bay, -11 in Thompson, and -7 in Norway House. In Winnipeg, it is -7 and -6 in Brandon. In Saskatchewan, it's -5 in Saskatoon and -5 in Regina as well. It's -7 in Buffalo Narrows and -8 in Meadow Lake. -8 in High Level and -7 in Fort McMurray. +4 in Calgary and -1 in Red Deer. +4 in Kamloops and 9 in Victoria. It is 6 in Prince Rupert and -1 in Prince George. -23 in Rock River and -19 in Old Crow. It's -12 in Yellowknife and -14 in Trout Lake. It is -20 in Colville Lake. It is -32 in Baker Lake, and it is -31 in Chesterfield. -28 in Caliwheat, and -26 in Clyde River. Ganawagi burlesque artist Lulu Leduchesne Rier was voted the second most influential burlesque performer in the world. She's been a staple of the Montreal burlesque scene for over a decade, and now is a mentor to up-and-coming BIPOC performers. Amelia Fournier has more.
Burlesque is often called the art of slowly taking your clothes off, but it's much more than that, says Ganawagi burlesque dancer Lulu Leduchesne de Rier.
It can be really easy to say, like, well, this is very demeaning, or it's sexualizing yourself, or and yeah, no, I think burlesque is very empowering. It's always been a really awesome means of expression for myself and for other people. And yeah, I think it's the complete opposite.
She is the stripping sensation from the Mohawk Nation.
Lulu, or Lauren Giles, was voted the second most influential burlesque figure of 2022 in the world in 21st Century Burlesque magazine.
To be voted by my community members as an influential figure is also very, very surreal and really cool. So I feel like I don't know, it's a very fruitful, amazing year, like a reaffirming year as an artist, and it just made me feel like I've been doing the right thing and that I've been on this right track.
In June 2022, she competed in the world's biggest burlesque competition, the Burlesque Hall of Fame Weekender in Las Vegas. Her piece won, despite it being unconventional.
It is really a piece that is centered around this idea of like decolonizing sexuality and like reclaiming my body as like an Indigenous woman. A lot of the dance is like very violent, or has like violent kind of imagery. It's very like sexual, it's like really political, and I was really surprised when they're like, we want this to compete. You do not want to have to repair any of the beadwork on it. It took hundreds of hours. And when I won, I was just like, I can't believe that like it's the whole world like recognizing this piece as like the best in the week. And I was like, it meant a lot to me. And then to have conversations that week with other Indigenous performers that were there during the week and to see how much that piece resonated with them adds a whole nother level to it.
Last year's Burlesque Hall of Fame Weekender featured a land acknowledgement for the first time, something Giles helped work on. She and the other Indigenous artists added a call out for donations for different community organizations.
It's not just about saying like, this is the territory that we're on. It's about like maybe reaching out to institutions or organizations that are in our territories and seeing how we can make like legitimate connections with the Indigenous people that still occupy the land and give back.
Burlesque has come a long way from its racially insensitive past, says Giles.
Resurgence of burlesque in the like late 90s, early 2000s, it was definitely like chasing that 1950s, 1960s retro aesthetic, and unfortunately you'd have things like tiki shows and geisha acts and like Pocahontas princess type acts.
Giles will be producing the 2023 edition of the Burlesque Hall of Fame Weekender competition and won't be competing anymore, to focus on mentoring and producing.
Kind of like entering my NT stage in the community, and it was just fun because I'm so young. You know, I'm too young, much too young to be a mother.
But she won't stop performing anytime soon. Emilia Fournier, APTN National News, Montreal.
Nation to Nation's first new episode of the new year is almost upon us. Here's host Lindsay Richardson with a preview.
You know the saying, new year, new me. But when it comes to Canadian politics, we'll be circling back to some old questions and issues in 2023. Like, will inherent Indigenous rights hold up in court cases against mining companies? Can police improve their practices to be more trauma-informed?
You know, it shouldn't be the color of someone's skin. It shouldn't be their social status. It should just be the fact that they were traumatized and then given that time to rest. And then, you know, just giving them time to slowly remember what they remember and how they felt, as opposed to a quickly rushed statement.
And if you don't know what you should be following, we'll have that rundown for you too. That's on Nation to Nation tonight.
That's the show for today. See you here again tomorrow. I'm Priscilla Wolf.